we got the next question, right? So, SocialCalibrat, and thank you, Darren. You know I'm only cutting you off because we're friends, right? This is a friendly dinner, right? And I don't drink alcohol at all, so I only order water. But if I was drinking alcohol, it'd be perhaps even louder. I don't know. But SocialCalibrat, thank you so much for being here. Says, I always wondered how social credit could be implemented here. Darren, you've been kind of socially credited, right? They gave you a score.
Sure. No, I mean, social credit absolutely functions here. And it functions in an overt way. It functions in a kind of more subtle way. But absolutely, if you violate the dictates of political correctness, which is basically this, the religion of the American regime at this point, you will be subject to punishments that make it more difficult to earn a livelihood, that make it more difficult to just enjoy the basic conveniences of life, which are increasingly integrated with these companies that you're talking about. So I think it's absolutely, it functions slightly differently from how it works in China, but there absolutely is a de facto social credit system in the United States.
So in China, I'm sorry, I talked over you.
No, no.
I didn't mean to that time.
No, fine.
In China, basically, it's a different people operating system, and all the tech companies there, which have been, just as the American companies here, kind of take over the government, right? And they just preserve the facade, right? You've made that point. In China, the CCP infiltrates the tech companies and just kind of preserves their facade, their functional facade, but it's really kind of a money laundering scheme. And there's a lot of things, and it's complex. So I don't really want to get into it too much here. But so in America, in China, there's one central repository for all that information. For everything about Darren in China, there would be one central repository that the government manages. And in America, one of the significant differences is that it's kind of surveillance capitalism. So Facebook has their kind of information. They each have this proprietary information. So there is that kind of difference. Also in China, there is a definition of a good citizen. America has never had a definition of what a good citizen is until now. Right now, it seems that there is a definition of a good citizen, so they can start being the corporate powers can start being malicious and very coercive in their tactics to force everybody into that good citizenship box.
Right. Yep. I think it's a very effective mechanism of social control, and it's yet another dimension along which the U.S. is converging with China, at least on this moral freedom dimension. And there's really, very little moral high ground with which we can prosecute this new Cold War with China that really has to do more with preserving the loot system for ruling class factions that hate the American people rather than anything materially beneficial to the actual American people.
So earlier you asked me to name the 5 most powerful people in the United States, right? And it turned out there were 7 just off the top of my head. So that was the org chart, right? And eventually they're all going to compete for who's, there can only be one, right? Like Highlander. But first they have to clean up the plebs. And I think they look at the plebs. I think they look at humanity as a startup, as a flawed business model. And they want to tweak it, and that's got a lot of cruelty to it. But I will say, so before you asked about the most powerful people, but you've actually answered that question. You said it was going to be kind of a bizarre question, but you've actually answered your own bizarre question with a very rational answer, because the judiciary has not been prosecuting these people, the Trump, people particularly. It's been the tech companies. They've displaced our judiciary. They've displaced our legislative branches. Mm-hmm. They just haven't announced it yet. Everyone's waiting in America for for Facebook just to announce themselves as kind of the ruler. It's not going to happen that way. They don't need to.